Okay, so welcome to part 2 of making a chess set in Blender. If you haven't already seen part 1 where we do all the modeling, check it out, but this is part 2. We're going to set up these nice materials here. I'm going to show you where you can download them. We're going to import them into Blender, so let's get started. Okay, so now that we're inside of part 2, we're going to be doing the materials. So what you can do is go to your internet search browser and just type in polyhaven.com, so polyhaven.com, then go to their texture section and you're going to just go under the wood dropdown. And what you're going to do is you're going to look for a nice dark wood material. So I'm going to go with this one here called wood table. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to make sure it is set to 2K. I'm going to make sure it's Blender. I'm going to click download, and that's going to download a setup for us. We don't have to do any of the node work because it's already set up. And then I'm going to quickly go back while that's downloading, and I'm going to go and look for lighter wood. So I'm going to go, the plywood here is looking nice and light, but it's not quite glossy enough. Kitchen wood looks like a lighter wood as well, but it's the texture doesn't look quite right. So I might just go with this plywood here. I'm going to click on it, and once again I'm going to download it at 2K and make sure it's Blender. I'm going to download that as well. And then while that's downloading, we're going to go back. And the cool thing about Polyhaven, if you actually click on the website here, they also do HDRIs, not just texture. So let's go to the HDRIs. And this one is completely up to you. So I'm not going to tell you guys which one to download, but I'm going to go with a nice indoor scene. So I'm going to just go with something like this. It's an indoor scene. It looks pretty good to me. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to download that in 2K. So you guys can choose whatever HDRI lighting environment you want. So just make sure you have those three things downloaded: a dark wood, a light wood, and a HDRI, which is an EXR file. So here in my downloads, I have that HDRI file and I have the two zip files. I'm just going to go ahead and extract both of them because they're zip folders. And then extract this one as well. And just keep note of where you have these two extracted on your computer, and keep note of where this HDRI is. In fact, I'm just going to take both of these and just drag them to my desktop so I know where they are, those two extracted zips and that HDRI. Now I'm going to hop into Blender again, and this is where we left off in part 1. So what we're going to do now is we already added the temporary materials to our chessboard here. So let's go File, let's go Append. And let's simply just go to wherever it is you downloaded your textures to. So I'm going to go to Wood Table, which is the dark one. I'm going to click on that file, and I'm going to go to the materials file, and then I'm going to click on the material and go Append. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the Wood Dark, and I'm going to just, with it selected under the materials properties, I'm going to come to the drop down and then get that wood material, which is now imported. And if I now go Z and I go material preview, you can now see it's replaced that. And let's do the other one as well. So let's go File, Append. Now I'm going to go back. So in my case, I put that on my desktop, and that is the plywood one. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go inside, click on the blend file, go to the material, and then click on that material, go Append. And now I'm going to go to Wood Light, come to the drop down, and then choose that plywood. And now you can see here it is, and it's just a coincidence, but they're both running in opposite directions, which looks even cooler. So now we have our wood sorted out that easy. So let's go over to our render properties. Let's change it to cycles. If you have a GPU, I recommend you use it. And then we're going to go to the render samples. Let's make it something like 80 samples. And let's go Shift A, let's add in a camera. And I like to move my camera up. Now, it's completely up to you where you want to place your camera. So I'm not going to tell you where to place it, but I'm going to place mine something like this. And I'm going to go to my camera settings. I'm going to make it 120 on the focal length. So I'm zoomed in nice and shallow, like this. I might look a little bit more from the top, like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of these, and I'm just going to go ahead and apply the modifiers, okay? Especially the ones that have these cutter objects. I'm just going to go ahead and apply everything, selecting each one of them, apply all the modifiers. This one as well, and then this one. And then I'm going to go Alt H just to bring back those cutter objects from part 1, and I'm just going to delete them. So now we have our chess pieces here, as you can see, all neatly made and ready to go. So what we're going to do is, if you need to scale them to make them a bit bigger or smaller, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to select the king here, and I'm just going to place the king here. And I'm going to make sure to select the king and a little bit at the top here. I'm going to go Shift D to duplicate and place another king here somewhere. in the scene. So there's 2 kings. And I'm going to grab the queen. I'm going to move the queen maybe over here. Shift D to duplicate that queen and place the queen over here. And then I'm going to take this pawn, move it here. I'm going to go Shift D and just randomly move the pawn, duplicating it a few times, placing it kind of where I think it should be. And I'm not trying to set up an actual chess game. If I did, I would have made all the pieces. And then I might grab a bishop here, and maybe let's place a bishop here, and maybe here, maybe one in here. You guys get the idea. Just make some of the chess pieces, and then you have something that looks like this. We're now going to go Z, we're going to go rendered. And now we're going to go to our world properties. We're going to go to the color here. Let's make an environment texture. And now it's where that downloaded HDRI comes in. So we're going to go open. In my case, that's on my desktop. Like I said earlier, whichever one you choose on Polyhaven, up to you. But you can see here now we have this nice environmental lighting. And we're also going to go Shift A and just add in an area light and bring it up. And I like to go to my light settings, make that 450 in this case. Really depends on the scale of your scene. I'm going to make it a bit bigger. And then I'm just going to have it kind of coming off from the side here. I'm going to go Z, go rendered. And that's looking pretty good. Feel free to rotate your lighting and try to go for some different approaches, different styles. I might just duplicate this, have one coming from here. Whatever you feel makes your scene look good, but the HDRI really adds that nice lighting. Now to make this look even better, I'm going to select my camera. I'm going to go to my camera settings, enable depth of field, click on the eyedropper, and then just select a single random piece towards the front, and then bring down that f-stop so you get some nice soft focus like this. So the lower you bring it, and you can see we now have this nice shallow depth of field. So now what we can do is we can actually select one of our chess pieces. Let's just select a random piece. Let's go over to our materials. Let's go to the drop down. Let's give it one of our wood materials. So I'm going to go with my darker kind of wood. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this little 2 over here, this little number, and that's going to make it its own material. And I'm going to call it chess piece 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the shading workspace. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change the mapping over here, which is already set up. I'm going to change it from UV to object. And then with all of these different textures here, I'm just going to change the projection method from flat to box. So I'm going to go to each one of these and just change it from flat to box, like so. Now it's no longer relying on the UV. So if we now go to our rendered, you can see it is being box projected. And you can now come here as well to your mapping. And if you have to, you can change the scale here. So I'm going to go maybe 12. Okay, that's way too big. I might make it 0.5 or maybe even 0.3. It really just depends. I'm going to go with 0.3. And now we have a darker chess piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to randomly, just to make it a little bit different, randomize it. I'm going to come here to the base color for this material. I'm going to go Shift A, search, and just get a hue and saturation. Place that over here, and what I'm going to do is go into rendered. And with this piece, I'm just going to make the value a little bit lighter by bringing it up. And I'm just going to bring down the saturation a little bit, like that. Now we have a bit more of a different kind of looking wood. And what I'm going to do is going to select it. I'm going to go to my materials tab, and I'm just going to go down to the viewport display and give that a different color so I know what it is. Then I'm going to hold in Shift and select all of the different bits that I want to add that to. Make sure you don't have 2 kings or 2 queens of the same color or 2 bishops. Just choose some random pieces. And then what you're going to do is you're going to hold in Shift, select the one you've added it to, go Control L, and just link those materials. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab the other types of chess pieces. I'm going to come to the materials tab, come to the drop down, and then choose that chess piece 1 material. And we're going to once again click on this number to make it a separate one. And let's call this chess piece 2. So now it's its own material. And what we're going to do, we're just going to come over here, get rid of this hue and saturation node by going Control X to get rid of it. Then we're going to go Shift A, search, and get a color ramp. Place it over here, and let's go into our camera view. Let's go Z, let's go rendered. And now let's go over here, grab this white value, bring it down. So in this case, I've brought this value all the way down, and I've kind of made it kind of like a peachy kind of wood color, like so. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to select all of these other chess pieces, like so. All the ones that don't have material. Then I'm going to select that one that I've just added it to, the newly made one. I'm going to go Control L. I'm going to link those materials. While I have that chess piece 2 material active, I'm going to go to the viewport display. And just so I can see it's a different one, I'm just going to give it a different viewport here. And now if we go Z and we go rendered, we can see we now have these 2 different colors here. So let's go ahead and just make sure to save. And let's go back to our layout. And let's go render and render image, and let's see what this looks like. And there we have it. We now have a final render. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. And by the way, if you want to make this look even cooler, you can obviously go ahead and extrude the board here, give it some thickness. You can go add a decorative border around it. You can add a table and maybe make a wooden table, put it on here, you know, whatever you guys feel will make this look cooler. Go ahead and do it. This is just kind of how I'm doing it. And I think that the HDRI is obviously a very important part of it. And also just try messing around with your camera. Get some nice camera shots, some nice camera, different views with your camera. And also another thing you can do for a little tip is go over to your shading. Then go over here to object, change it to world. And then you can actually go over here to your environment texture. And you can go ahead and give it a texture coordinate. And you can also go Shift A, search and get a mapping. Place the mapping here. Now you got a Z coordinate under the rotation, and you can actually go ahead and you can rotate that, and you can get different lighting directions with your HDRI, which can sometimes really also make or break your lighting setup. So you can see here some different kind of lighting here makes it look a little bit better in some situations. But that all said, I really hope you guys have enjoyed this 2-part chessboard tutorial, and I'll see you guys next time for another one. And as always, this will be on my Patreon.